My husband had been in the army for 3 years and had become a battalion commander. He was given 2 dependent passes to bring family members to live on base, and when he came home, he took 2 people with him. One was our son, Liam, and the other was Emily, the widow of his fallen comrade. Liam was his own flesh and blood. He couldn't bear to leave him in the countryside to suffer in poverty. Emily was the wife of the man who had once saved his life, and he intended to honor the promise he had made back then. As for me, he said, "Lisa, you and I are husband and wife. When the chance comes, I'll come back to bring you so we can be together again." Because of that one sentence in my past life, I stayed behind in our broken thatched hut, waiting 3 years, then another 3. In the end, I died sick in bed without ever seeing him again. In this life, before he could even speak, I had already bought my train ticket. If he thought he could throw me aside as his unwanted wife, he was mistaken. I traded 2 old hens to the village secretary's wife for 20 yuan. She handed me the money with a laugh and said, "So, is Luke back this time to take you and Liam to the base?" I heard the military quarters are big courtyards with solid brick houses. "Lisa, you've got a good eye. You picked a fine husband. You're about to be a military wife." The Luke she mentioned was my husband. A month earlier, he had been commended for merit on a mission. As a battalion commander, he earned his leader's favor, and they awarded him 2 family accompaniment slots. This trip home, he had come to take his chosen people with him. All the villagers and neighbors assumed the 2 he would take were me and our son, Liam. But the truth was, in my past life and in this one, I was never on his list. I tucked the money carefully into my pocket, smiled, and half-joked, "Of course. My husband is so outstanding. If I don't keep an eye on him, who knows when some vixen might snatch him away." In my previous life, Luke rose higher and higher until he became a top commander, while I, the wife he cast aside, never shared a shred of his glory or a penny of his pay. Everything went to Emily, the widow of his comrade. Now that I've been given another chance, I won't be foolish enough to let them cheat me again. Whatever belongs to me, I won't let a single thing slip away. The 20 yuan I got from selling the hens is my travel money to leave. With the money safely put away, I headed home. Before I even reached the door, I heard laughter drifting out. In the yard, my son Liam was practicing his characters, sitting upright, his small hand gripping a red pencil as he carefully traced each stroke. From time to time he murmured, "Dad, look, am I writing well?" The man he called Dad replied in a cool, stern voice, "Talk less. Focus, and your writing will keep improving." He stood tall and straight, his posture firm, his features sharp and handsome. Already broad and imposing, in uniform, he looked even more dignified and commanding. That was my husband Luke. 6 years ago, he had collapsed from hunger at my doorstep. I gave him half a cornbread bun. My parents, seeing he was decent-looking and had nowhere to go, allowed him to stay as my live-in husband. Later, when the draft came, he was chosen for the army. At that time, I had just given birth to Liam. There was another person in the yard, a quiet, gentle woman. Unlike Luke's cold, severe manner, her eyes were soft, her demeanor patient. She bent down kindly to guide Liam, and when she saw he had written a stroke wrong, she took his little hand and led him through it. That was Emily, the substitute teacher at the village elementary school, the widow of Luke's fallen comrade, the white lotus of my past life. By noon, wisps of white smoke rose from the neighbors' chimneys. Outside, the chorus of birds and cicadas rang through the summer air, while in my yard, the 3 of them looked like a picture-perfect family of 3. I frowned, pushed the wooden door open hard, and called out loudly, "Well, what a rare guest, Miss Emily. How come you've got time to make a home visit to my place today? The other day I asked if you were free to tutor Liam. You said he was stupid, not cut out for studying. So why is it that the moment you saw my husband come home, you rushed over here to play the diligent teacher?" My words came out sharp and unrelenting, and Emily's face instantly went pale. She didn't look at me. Instead, with red-rimmed eyes, she turned weakly toward the man standing at her side and tried to explain. "Luke, I didn't. Lisa is wronging me. Men always fall for the pitiful act of a white lotus, but not me. I wasn't going to indulge her again. In my past life, it was because I was too soft-hearted and too kind that I ended up miserable and abandoned. Before Luke could open his mouth, I yanked Liam over to my side and asked, "Liam, tell me, did Miss Emily ever call you stupid?" My son, only 6 years old, faced with a grown-up's question, didn't dare to lie. He froze for a moment, then gave a small nod. I smiled with satisfaction. Even the child admits it. Miss Emily, do you still want to deny it? I squatted down and wrapped my arms around Liam, but my eyes locked straight on Emily. My son is only 6. You call him stupid? Aren't you deliberately trying to crush his spirit? Emily's face turned from green to white, her watery eyes glancing toward Luke for help. I knew that look too well. In my past life, every time she pretended to be pitiful in front of me, Luke would without hesitation stand on her side. And sure enough, Luke frowned. "Lisa, Miss Emily meant well." I cut him off with a cold laugh. "Oh really? Then why don't I see her teaching the other village children? Why is it only today of all days that she comes running over to tutor Liam, the very day you return home?" The courtyard fell into a tense, suffocating silence. Liam tugged lightly at my sleeve and whispered, "Mom, Miss Emily taught me how to write the word dad today." A pang hit my chest. In my past life, when Liam was taken away, he wore the same helpless expression. Later, under Emily's influence, he grew more and more distant from me. In the end, he didn't even return for my funeral. "That's enough," Luke finally spoke, his soldier's authority carrying a weight that silenced everything. "Miss Emily, thank you for today. Lisa and I have family matters to discuss." Emily bit her lip, but before leaving she still couldn't resist softening her voice and saying, "Luke, I'll come back tomorrow to keep teaching Liam his letters." The moment she stepped out, Luke's face relaxed. He squatted down, patted Liam's head and said, "Go inside and play. Dad and Mom need to talk." Once Liam obediently went in, Luke pulled a cloth bundle from his uniform pocket. "This is the allowance I've saved over the years. Take it." I accepted the bundle. It was heavy. In my past life, he had given me the same thing and I had been moved to tears, foolishly telling him, "We may be poor at home, but you've had it harder out there. Keep it for yourself." And what happened? He spent it all on Emily. "Thanks," I said simply, shoving the bundle straight into my pocket. We were nearly out of food, and the money was desperately needed. Luke froze, clearly not expecting me to accept it so bluntly. He cleared his throat. "Lisa, this time I came back to take 2 people with me to the base." "I know," I said calmly. "Liam and Emily, right?" His pupils shrank sharply. How do you know?" I smiled. "Just a guess. You're a man of loyalty. Emily's husband died saving you. Of course you feel you owe her. And Liam is your son. You can't bear to leave him here in the countryside to suffer. As for me," I drew out my words deliberately, "I've got thick skin. Staying behind in the village doesn't matter, right?" Luke's face shifted again and again, guilt flickering in his eyes. At last he sighed and lowered his voice, trying to comfort me. "Lisa, I'm glad you understand. The army has limited conditions. For now, I can only take 2 people. Later." "There's no later," I cut him off. "I'm going with you." "What?" Luke shot to his feet, his voice rising. "That's against the rules. Rules are made by people." I met his eyes steadily. "I'm your lawful wife. I'm Liam's mother." "Why is it that he can go but I can't?" I demanded. Luke's brows furrowed deeply. "Emily's situation is special," he said. "Special how?" I sneered. "Is it because she's especially good at acting pitiful? Or because she's especially good at seducing another woman's husband?" My words struck a nerve, and Luke's voice hardened in anger. "Lisa, watch your mouth." I didn't flinch. "Captain Luke, don't forget how you survived to this day. If my father hadn't taken you in and given you food to eat, you would have starved to death on the roadside long ago. And now that you've made something of yourself, you want to abandon your wife and son." My words hit him where it hurt. His face turned dark as iron. We stood locked in stalemate until Liam poked his head out from the house. "Mom, Dad, I'm hungry." It wasn't the right moment to tear things apart with Luke, so I seized the chance to soften my tone. "Let's eat first. We can talk about this tomorrow." For dinner, I prepared a full table of dishes, all of Luke's favorites. He looked at me with a complicated expression as I moved around the kitchen, busying myself, wanting to say something but holding back. "Try this bacon," I said, placing a piece on his plate. "I cured it myself last winter." He took a bite, and his gaze softened. "Not bad. Bet you can't get this in the army, huh?" I said casually, then added with feigned innocence, I heard Emily is quite the cook. Luke's chopsticks paused midair. She sometimes makes pastries for the guys. Inside, I laughed coldly. In my past life, I'd heard how Emily became famous in the unit for being so virtuous, always bringing Luke food and mending his clothes. Over time, everyone said she was the one truly worthy of being the commander's wife. What time is the train tomorrow? I asked suddenly. 10 in the morning, Luke answered reflexively, then immediately grew wary. Why are you asking? I smiled faintly. Nothing, just curious. That night, once Luke and Liam had fallen asleep, I quietly got up, took the bundle I had packed days ago and hid it behind the door. Then I pulled out the 20 yuan I had gotten from selling the hens and carefully sewed it into the lining of my underclothes. At dawn, I rose early to cook breakfast. By the time Luke got up, the house was already spotless. Up this early? He asked in surprise. Just a habit, I replied, handing him a hot bowl of porridge. As he ate, I couldn't help staring at him. 6 years in the army had made him taller, stronger, and more striking. No wonder Emily had her eye on him. In my past life, it was because I had been too honest, too meek, that I let the two of them bully me. After breakfast, Luke said he was going to see Emily. I stopped him. What's the rush? I'll go with you. He frowned. Why would you? To see you all off, I said with a harmless smile. Who knows when I'll see you again after this? He seemed unsettled by my attitude, but didn't argue further. When we arrived at Emily's house with Liam, she was already packed. Her 2 big suitcases were larger than what Liam and I had combined. Luke? Emily's eyes lit up when she saw him, but the moment she noticed me, her smile stiffened. Lisa, you're here too. What's wrong? Not happy to see me? I asked sweetly. Of course not. Emily forced a smile, then turned quickly to Luke. Is the ride arranged? Luke nodded. The tractor from the village will take us to the county train station. I hoisted Liam onto my hip. Then let's go. We don't want to miss the train. All the way to the station, Emily kept trying to find chances to talk to Luke, leaving me deliberately on the sidelines. I didn't get angry. I simply watched them closely, observing every little exchange. Although Luke kept a stern face, his tone was clearly softer whenever he spoke to Emily. When we reached the train station, the place was packed with people. Luke held Liam by one hand and carried Emily's luggage with the other, while I silently followed behind, watching the 3 of them look just like a happy family. Lisa, I'll see you off here. Luke turned to me before the entrance. You should go back. I didn't move. Instead, I threw my head back and laughed. Who said I'm going back? Luke froze. What do you mean? I pulled out the train ticket I had prepared long ago. I bought a ticket too. I'm going with you to the base. Emily's face changed instantly. That's not proper. Luke only applied for 2 dependent passes. Passes, I sneered. I'm his legal wife. Since when do I need a pass to go see my husband? Luke's brows tightened. Lisa, stop making trouble. The army has rules. I stared straight at him, my tone hard, my eyes blazing. Today it's either the 4 of us go together or none of us go. You choose. People nearby had already started to stop and watch. Luke's face was as dark as night, but bound by his soldier's image, he couldn't lash out in public. At that moment, the train whistle shrieked. Luke clenched his jaw. We'll get on first. We'll talk later. Once aboard, I discovered that Luke had only bought 2 sleeper tickets, one for himself and Liam, and one for Emily. Clearly, I had never been in his plans. Where am I supposed to sleep? I asked bluntly. Emily lowered her eyes and stammered. Maybe I can squeeze in with Luke. Lisa, you and Liam. Dream on. I cut her off with a cold laugh. You, a widow sharing a bed with my husband? Don't you have any shame? Emily's eyes reddened at once. Luke's voice snapped, sharp with command. Lisa, apologize to Emily. Apologize? Sure. I stepped right in front of Emily, gave her a deep bow, then raised my voice so everyone nearby could hear. Miss Emily, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called you shameless. You just want to sleep with my husband. I should let you have your way. On a crowded train, space was tight and voices carried. My words instantly drew the attention of all the women nearby. And who doesn't love a juicy scandal? Look at that vixen. Daring to steal someone's husband in broad daylight, one woman spat. Shameless, another chimed in. And that man's wearing a soldier's uniform. What a disgrace to the country. And his real wife just has to sit back and take it. What a useless man. Another muttered loudly. Emily tried to defend herself, but she couldn't even get 2 words out before she was drowned in a storm of scolding tongues. Luke shot me a furious glare, shoved me down onto the bunk, and stormed off to buy me a standing ticket from the conductor. The moment he was gone, Emily dropped her pitiful act. Her eyes turned dark and venomous as she leaned close to my ear and hissed, "Lisa, don't be too proud. Luke will be mine sooner or later." I turned my head to meet her gaze, lifted a brow, and sighed theatrically. So, the wife he loves most and his best friend's widow. If your dead husband knew you were saying this, would he jump out of his coffin in rage? She had only meant to provoke me, but I hit back so hard she was left breathless and trembling with fury. But this was only the beginning. As the train pulled away, Liam quickly drifted off to sleep. I lay on the narrow bunk, staring out at the scenery flying past the window, thoughts tumbling endlessly. In my past life, at this very moment, I had been at home, crying my heart out, while Luke had already started his new life with Emily and Liam. Thirsty? Emily's voice cut through my thoughts. She stood before me with a cup of hot water in her hands. Her skin was thick as armor. Just moments ago she wanted nothing more than to choke me, and now she plastered on a smile, trying to act kind in front of Luke. "Thanks," I said coolly, but no. I turned on my side and refused coldly, but Emily wouldn't give up. She sat right down beside my bunk and tried to coax me in a soft voice. "Lisa, why make things so hard? Luke has it tough enough in the army. For his reputation and future, can't you just stop making trouble?" "Making trouble?" I arched a brow. "Wanting to stay with my husband and son is making trouble? So what? You think I should just be abandoned in the countryside to live or die?" "That's not what I meant." Emily bit her lip. "It's just that the army has limited conditions." "Emily," I cut her off sharply, "drop the act. I can see right through those little schemes in your heart." Her face flickered. "I don't understand what you mean." "Don't understand?" I sneered. "You just want to take my place as Luke's wife, isn't that it?" Emily's face flushed red. "You're slandering me. Luke is my husband's comrade. I respect him. Respect him enough to want to crawl into his bed?" I exposed her without mercy. Emily shot to her feet, her water cup falling and clattering on the floor, drawing the eyes of nearby passengers. Tears welling, she fled toward the restroom. The commotion caught Luke's attention. He walked over with a dark face. "Lisa, you bullied Emily again? Since when did you become such a shrew?" "I only spoke the truth," I shrugged. "What? Are you going to defend her again?" Luke took a deep breath. "Lisa, I need you to understand, taking Emily to the base is purely to repay her husband's sacrifice for me. If you're angry, take it out on me. Don't drag an innocent into it." "Innocent?" I stared straight into his eyes. "Then why don't you dare look me in the eyes when you say that?" His gaze wavered for a moment before he forced his expression back into sternness. "Stop imagining things. Once we reach the base, stay for a few days, and then go home. Don't make this harder for me." With that, he turned and walked away. I watched his back, my fists clenching tight. In my past life, it was because I was too weak that they toyed with me so easily. In this life, I will never let that happen again. The train kept moving forward, carrying us all toward an uncertain fate. But this time, Lisa would seize my destiny with my own hands. When the train finally arrived, Luke's face was still dark. He had only ever planned to bring Liam and Emily to the base, never expecting I would force my way along. The garrison was even grander than I'd imagined. Rows of blue brick houses neatly aligned, soldiers on the training grounds chanting in unison, their spirits high. Emily stepped off the train and walked ahead as though she were perfectly at home, like she was already the mistress of the place. "Captain Luke is back." A few army wives standing at the entrance of the family compound called out, their eyes darting between me and Emily with curious glances. A woman with permed curls smiled and asked, "And this is?" "This is my wife, Lisa," Luke said flatly, then gestured to Emily. "And this is Emily, my comrade's widow. She'll be temporarily placed here with the unit." "Oh," the wives exchanged knowing looks. I had expected as much. In my past life, Emily thrived here. Everyone praised her as gentle and virtuous, while I, the real wife, was treated like an outsider. When the housing was assigned, Luke, as a battalion commander, was given a 2-bedroom apartment. Emily, because she was a martyr's widow, was arranged into another building in the compound. Lisa, you'll stay here for now, in a few days. Luke trailed off, clearly meaning he would send me back. I gave a cold laugh. Don't worry, I won't cling here refusing to leave. He frowned but said no more. The next morning, as soon as I got up, I heard the sound of women laughing and chatting just outside the door. They say Captain Luke's wife is from the countryside, can barely recognize any words. Seriously? How could someone like that deserve Captain Luke? Exactly. I think Comrade Emily looks more like a proper army wife. After all, she's even an elementary school teacher. I yanked the door open, startling the group of wives gossiping outside. Their voices choked off instantly, and they looked embarrassed. Good morning, ladies, I greeted them with a cheerful smile. I just got here and don't know anyone yet, so I hope you'll look after me from now on. They nodded awkwardly, then quickly scattered. I knew words alone weren't enough. I had to win their respect with actions. At noon in the family compound's cafeteria, a few wives were grumbling about the food. This dish is way too salty today. What's wrong with the kitchen crew? Right? And they don't even serve a decent noodle dish. I stepped forward. How about I make a meal for everyone? They looked at me in surprise. You know how to cook? I grew up in the countryside. I may not be good at much, but cooking I can do, I said as I rolled up my sleeves and walked into the kitchen. Half an hour later, I carried out a pot of steaming, hand-pulled noodles, paired with chili sauce I had pickled myself. The fragrance filled the room. Oh my God, these noodles are so chewy. This chili sauce is amazing, way better than the cafeteria food. The wives ate with relish, showering me with praise. Their attitude toward me instantly warmed. Lisa, you're really skilled. You'll have to teach me sometime, one of them said. I smiled and agreed, knowing this was only the first step. Emily had long maintained a reputation in the base as gentle and virtuous. She often brought the wives little pastries or helped mend their clothes. But I knew all too well her virtue was nothing but a performance. One day, Mrs. Lai from the compound brought over a torn uniform and handed it to Emily. Emily, could you mend this for me? My hands are clumsy, and I can't sew it properly. Emily smiled sweetly and accepted. Of course, leave it to me. I watched from the side and said deliberately, Emily, your stitches are way too loose. With that kind of sewing, it'll rip open again after just a few wears. Mrs. Lee froze, looked down, and realized I was right. Emily's face stiffened. Forcing a smile, she said, Usually I sew carefully. Maybe I'm just in a hurry today. Really? I picked up the needle and thread, and in just a few strokes, I sewed the uniform back together. My stitches were neat and tight. There, this will hold. Mrs. Lee's eyes widened in surprise. Lisa, your skill is much better than Emily's. Emily's face went pale. She forced another thin smile, muttered an excuse, and hurried away. Bit by bit, I began to establish myself in the compound, all the while keeping a close eye on Luke and Emily. Outwardly, they maintained the image of widow and caretaker, but small details gave them away. Emily always seemed to appear with water, just as Luke finished training. Sometimes a long strand of hair that wasn't mine clung to his shirt. And every now and then, Emily slipped into our house while I was out, pretending to help tidy up. One day, I came home earlier than expected, and caught her red-handed, pulling something from Luke's desk drawer and shoving it into her pocket. Emily, what are you looking for? I leaned against the doorway, smiling thinly. She jumped, then tried to cover it up. I was helping Luke organize his papers. Is that so? I walked over and yanked open the drawer. Inside lay an unfinished letter, the opening written clearly. Emily, I miss you as I write these words. Emily's face drained of all color. I sneered. Looks like I need to have a serious chat with Captain Luke. That night, Luke came home later than usual. I sat in the main room, mending clothes by the dim kerosene lamp, when I heard his deliberate light footsteps pacing outside. Come in. What are you hiding for? I said without looking up. The door creaked open, and there he was, standing at the threshold with his uniform jacket draped over his arm. His brow carried exhaustion. Lisa, about today? Today? What about it? I set down my needle and thread and looked straight at him. Are you talking about the letters you've been secretly exchanging with Emily behind my back, or about when exactly you plan to tell me you want a divorce? Luke's face went bloodless in an instant. He opened his mouth, but not a word came out. Not talking? Then I'll say it for you. I stood, pulled the unfinished letter from the drawer, and read aloud. Emily, I miss you as I write these words. Since our last meeting, I've thought of you constantly. The dependent passes have been arranged. That's enough. Luke cut me off sharply, veins bulging at his temple. Enough? How is it then? I sneered. Do you dare swear you only brought Emily to the base to look after your comrade's widow? Do you dare swear that what's between you two is clean and innocent? His fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. At last, he collapsed into a chair, shoulders slumping. I've wronged you. But Emily, she what? I pressed. She's more important than your lawful wife? More worthy of your protection than the mother of your child? Just then I heard a faint rustle at the door. I yanked it open, and Emily stumbled inside, nearly falling. So, you really were eavesdropping, I said coldly. Emily, Luke exclaimed in shock. Emily scrambled up, tears streaking her cheeks. Luke, I was just worried. Worried about what? I sneered. Worried that your affair would be exposed? Suddenly, Emily dropped to her knees and clutched at my hem. Lisa, it's all my fault. I seduced Luke. If you want to blame someone, blame me, not him. With disgust, I shook her hand off. And who are you putting on this show for? You think pretending to take all the blame makes you noble? Luke stepped forward, shielding her. Lisa, calm down. We can talk this through. I stared at the man who had once haunted my dreams, now standing against me for another woman. Whatever warmth lingered in my heart for him withered to ash. Fine. Perfect, I said with a nod. Since your love runs so deep, I'll help fulfill it. From the cabinet, I drew out a stack of papers, evidence I had secretly gathered these past weeks. Records of Emily slipping into our house, accounts of the hours she spent alone with Luke, even testimony of her dumping out the medicine I had prepared for him. Tomorrow morning at the regimental assembly, I said, my voice steady and deliberate, I'll present all of this to the commissar. Captain Luke, aren't you always so concerned with honor? Let's see if a man who destroys his marriage can still keep the stars on his shoulder. Luke's face went ghostly white. He stumbled back a step. Lisa. Emily collapsed on the floor, sobbing into her hands. I looked down at them with cold eyes. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., in the auditorium. You're free not to show, but you'll face the consequences. With that, I turned and shut the door hard behind me. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in years. In the room next door, Luke smoked one cigarette after another until dawn. By morning, the entire base was buzzing. Word spread that Captain Luke's family scandal would be exposed at the regimental meeting. When I entered the packed auditorium, every seat was filled, even the aisles crowded with people craning their necks. I wore my best clothes, my head high, my back straight, as I walked to the front. Behind me, Luke trailed with a face ashen and hollow. Emily, nearly fainting from tears, was supported by 2 female soldiers. Comrades, I said clearly into the microphone, my voice firm and ringing, today I will reveal a scandal, a violation of military marriage. Gasps swept the hall. I raised the stack of papers. Here is the evidence I've gathered over the past month of Luke and Emily's improper relationship, including but not limited to secret correspondence, late-night meetings, Emily repeatedly entering my home to search through personal belongings. Lies, Emily suddenly shouted, her voice shrill. You're slandering me. Slander? I sneered, pulling another slip from my pocket. Then how do you explain this, an examination report from the military hospital? I lifted it high for all to see. Pregnancy, 6 weeks. Emily, do you dare say this child isn't Luke's? The entire hall fell into absolute silence. Emily's face went ashen, and she collapsed onto the ground like a lifeless doll. Luke looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, frozen in place. Commissar Zhang rose to his feet, his face grim. Comrade Luke, are these accusations true? Luke's Adam's apple bobbed up and down a few times before he slowly removed his cap. I will accept an organizational investigation. That single sentence was as good as an admission of guilt. The hall erupted in uproar. After a brief but urgent discussion among the leaders, the decisions were announced on the spot. First, Luke was suspended from all duties and placed under disciplinary review. Second, Emily's dependent status was revoked immediately, and she was to be sent back to her hometown. Third, the organization would arrange my divorce proceedings. When the meeting was adjourned, I walked out of the hall with my head held high, warm sunlight spilling across my face. "Lisa!" Luke caught up from behind, his voice hoarse. "Give me a chance to explain." I stopped but didn't look back. "Captain Luke, the moment you chose to betray this family, you lost the right to explain." With that, I strode away and never looked back again. After the divorce, the Army arranged compensation for me. I was given an apartment in the family compound and, as a special exception, offered a job as a cook in the cafeteria. I had a roof over my head, money to spend, and my son by my side. In this life, I finally severed that poisonous tie with my own hands. The road ahead was still long. But this time, I would live for myself. From that day forward, I no longer lived in the shadow of Luke or Emily. The Army arranged a small apartment for me, and I was offered a steady job in the cafeteria. My son Liam and I lived simply, but our lives were finally our own. No more lies, no more betrayal. As for Luke, he lost everything: his position, his honor, his so-called future. And Emily, she was sent back to her hometown in disgrace, carrying a child that would forever remind her of her choices. Sometimes I would see Luke standing far away, watching us, but he never dared to come closer. The man who once abandoned his wife and son could no longer face the family he destroyed. I, Lisa, had finally cut those poisonous ties with my own hands. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was free. Holding Liam's little hand, I looked at the road ahead. This time I would live not for anyone else, but for myself.